The next book that I read that I thoroughly enjoyed and took me forever was The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. And I have the sequel to that one too. It's already packed, but I do have it. Um, which I will talk about it in a minute. This is a ridiculously long book. It's like 800 pages or something. I never read books that long. And believe it or not, I read it almost entirely as an ebook on my phone, despite it being that long. So, if you've never heard about this fantasy book, it's the story of a innkeeper or bartender who is quite young but is actually quite famous or really infamous in his world. And a storyteller comes to talk with him and wants to hear his story and write it down. And eventually he convinces the bartender to do this, but the bartender says it's going to take 3 days to tell you, and this book, the 800-page book, is only day one. Yeah, so it's a very long story, and the day one goes from the man's childhood to his teenage years. And one complaint that I have seen about this book is that not a whole lot happens. Um, and that's not entirely false. But, I mean, things happen, but I see where they're coming from. But I still really enjoyed the book. Like, I feel like the fact that nothing happened really didn't detract from my enjoyment of it. I really liked the writing style of it and the characters, and it was just really enjoyable to read. I liked it so much that I wasn't even done with the first book, and I saw the second one at a used bookstore and I bought it. And I was so afraid of seeing spoilers that I didn't like look at the back or see how many pages it was or the second one or anything. I just bought it. And then when I got home after I finished the first one, I went to see how many pages the second one was, and it's 1100 pages. So that's gonna happen. Um yeah, pretty sure I've never read a book that long. Maybe, like, if you count Lord of the Rings as one book, maybe that one's that long, but yeah, definitely would be the longest book I've ever read. Like, I don't understand how there's going to be more to tell after that. There's supposed to be a book three, which apparently people have been waiting on for a long time, which is why I'm not in a huge rush to read book two. Thank God I wrote down notes of what happened in the first book, because I'm not gonna remember everything that happened in those 800 pages, and I'm not reading it again. I loved it, but I'm not reading it again immediately. But anyway, the magic system in this book was very interesting, and there's still several mysteries that are very unsolved that I'm wanting to see the answers to. So I can't wait for that. So I guess I'm gonna read an 1100-page book. Hooray! Miss Marvel, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this graphic novel that hasn't already been said by other amazing YouTubers, but it's great. You should read it, and one of my favorite of the few graphic novels that I've read in the past year. I'd never really read graphic novels, and I've read a few since then, and this was one of my favorites. So, in case you haven't heard about this, it's a graphic novel by Marvel, and it's about a Pakistani Muslim teenage girl, I think living in New York, who gets superpowers, and it's wonderful. So you should read it. Another graphic novel that I read and enjoyed was Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. I'm not entirely sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, so if I'm not, I apologize. Persepolis is a biography in graphic novel form about the author's experience during the Iranian Revolution as a child and teenager. And it was definitely eye-opening for me because I sadly knew nothing about the Iranian Revolution before I read this, and not that I am remotely an expert in it now, but it at least gave me some general knowledge of the events, and also helped me to immediately put it into a human context by seeing it through the author's eyes and what it was like for her and her family and friends during that time. And the last book that I want to mention is The Martian by Andy Weir. I know I'm way behind on this one. I think I read it last summer, not long before the movie came out. I'm sure half of you or more have already read the book or seen the movie, but just in case you've been living under a rock and haven't, I do recommend it. It was great. It was a lot of fun. It's a great, fun science fiction thriller Um, so it's about an astronaut, played by Matt Damon in the movie, who gets stuck on Mars and has to figure out how to survive with the few supplies he has until NASA can get him home. And the book was so scientifically accurate that I had to look up concepts at some points because I'm not the most scientific person. I'm a language person. But even if you are not a science person, like I'm not a science person, I think you would still enjoy this book. And I did appreciate that it was scientifically accurate because sometimes even I read books and I'm like, I know that's not real. That's not a thing. So, yeah. So, yeah, you should read The Martian. The book is better than the movie. The book is always better than the movie, although the movie was quite good and Matt Damon did a great job. So those are just some of the highlights of the books I've read in the past year or so, and I'm really excited to get back into YouTube because it's been way too long, and I like talking about books, and I like hearing about books, and I would love to hear from you guys about the books that you've been reading and what books you've enjoyed lately, because, like I said, it's been way too long. So if you're watching this, thank you for watching this and for sticking through the whole video after I've been gone for so very long. Um, yeah, I appreciate it. So I will be back soon, hopefully, fingers crossed, with another video. So thanks, guys. Bye.